Hi, my name is Greg Smith. This is my '67 Mustang Fastback, drag race survivor. My dad was a mechanic when I was growing up, my whole life, and he always had different cars at home working on them. And he had a few cool cars sitting around, and I got interested through my dad, basically. All the cars that I have are pretty much here. I've had them for a long time. I've got my '67 Fastback Mustang, kind of a drag style car. I've got my 1955 Chevy 210, which was also a drag style car now. I've got my car that I had since college, was another '67 Mustang Fastback, and then I've got a 1965 Comet Caliente hardtop. So what got me into the drag racing style cars is basically when I was in high school, there was a group of guys I was friends with that were always working on, they had like every year Chevelle there was, it seemed like, and they were always working on the engines and changing gear ratios, and then we'd go out to the street races out in the valley, and I think that really had a big influence about that time in high school because of those guys. I do drag race, but not as much as I used to. Just, you know, family life, everything, you know, it takes time to do stuff, but I do occasionally get out and run the cars. Maybe not always legally, but yes. My career path has been with automotive magazines, my whole professional career since like right out of college. Actually, during college, I was interned at Hot Rod Magazine as an intern graphic designer. I got the internship, I freelanced, and still stayed the course the whole time, working in the magazines. You know, eventually ended up in the off-road magazine area. After working at many different magazines, I became art director at Hot Rod Magazine for about 3 years during their 50th anniversary. And so I was kind of a dream job, you know, being immersed, you know, being into cars and then being immersed in it at work and having coworkers that are into cars. It was very cool. And so I was there 28 years as of last December 2019. When we had, they killed 19 magazines in one day. It was a very sad day in the publishing world. I'm the fourth owner. I think it's been a drag car most of its life because there's only like 48,000 miles on the odometer, and I'm almost positive that is original mileage. It kind of has a local Southern California history. I mean, it's not like it's a famous car or anything like that, but it is kind of famous in a small circle of people over the last 40 years. So I've bumped into several people over the years that knew this car back in the 70s and 80s. The earliest story I had heard was from a guy that used to race at OCIR with a Chevelle, and I knew my car had raced there, I think with the first owner that built the car. I think it was the first owner that built the car. And he actually, I was describing my car just to see, hey, maybe he remembers my car. You know, that's kind of a long shot, you know, back in the 70s or whatever, I can remember that far back. But this guy remembered this Fastback, and the reason he remembered it is because he remembered it had a 4-speed, and it was a small block, like a Boss 302 with a tunnel ram setup, and the owner of the car then would launch the car at like 6,000 RPM. And the reason this guy remembered the car was because he thought it was going to blow up the drivetrain every time he launched the car. So it stuck out in his mind all these years. So I was pretty blown away by that. So kind of an interesting story on this car. I know back in the 70s, the photos that I've seen, there used to be some stickers, some like sponsor stickers on the passenger door or the driver door, or maybe both. I think the second owner of the car, I believe he's the one that peeled those stickers off really carefully, and as many of them as he could save, and he put them underneath the hood, on the underside of the hood, and they're still there today. The first owner that I've heard about with this car was from Oceanside, and he's the one that raced in OCIR down in Orange County International Raceway. And that's when it ran like 1180s with a 4-speed. And then the car was sold to a guy in Burbank who had the car, raced it a little bit, and from what I understand, I think the engine blew up or something. And then the car was parked for many, many years. And one day I don't know, pushed the car out of the garage. You know, he always had it covered up from what I understand, but I think he pushed the car out of the garage or something, and then somebody at my work lived in that area and happened to be driving by and saw the car. Anyway, one of the guys at my work ended up buying the car. He was moving along with it and trying to get it running and everything, and then he had a job change and he had to move away, and he knew I loved the car, and so he offered the car to me. I was just like, yep, I'll take it. Without the engine though, he kept the engine. in the transmission, but I got the car basically the way he got it. But he had upgraded it with some nice parts, the rear axle, and the Caltrack bars, and front disc brakes, so bare brakes and stuff. So he did some nice modifications to it when I got the car. And I already had an engine and transmission for it, ready to go, so it was pretty easy. And the last 2 owners have really wanted to buy the car back. And I feel a little bad, but I love the car as much as those 2 guys do. So after I got an engine, a 351, a standard 30 over 351 engine with the small bell housing C6 transmission and 456 gears. I think the car was running like 12.0 at that time with that engine combination. Then when I got the 393 stroker engine, we did dyno the car a couple times, and it made, I believe the dyno numbers on the engine at the rear wheels were about 375. I knew, it's gonna be quicker. So a buddy of mine installed a roll cage. It was a kit from Chris Olson. And we did some front connectors with that as well, stiffen up the chassis and everything, because these cars are unit bodies. And with the Caltrack bars were already on the car when I got it, so didn't have to do too much to the car to get it to where it's at now, to be honest with you. To tell you the truth, I forgot the exact price. It's either $3,500 or $3,700 is what I paid for this car, but of course that was, I don't know, 18 years ago, whatever it was, with no engine or trans, but it looked exactly the way it is. One really cool thing about this car when I got it is the wheels that are on the car. They're Fenton's gyros, and the front runners are 3.5 inch, which technically aren't even street legal, I don't think. And the rears, I believe, they're either 9 or 10 inches wide, but they're vintage Fentons. The car basically looks pretty much exactly the same as it did since the 70s. The only major change is this hood scoop. This is a Boss 429 hood scoop that I put on because when I got the car, it had this huge hood scoop for a tunnel ram, and I wasn't running a tunnel ram, and I didn't want to. It was just too hard to drive with this big, huge hood scoop. It just really bothered me. I couldn't see very well. So I put this Boss 429 scoop, and the original holes are still in the hood because the old hood scoop was just screwed in right into the hood with sheet metal screws. When I first put it together, it was not on Nitrous. Now the car is on Nitrous as well, just to make it a little more fun. The best it's done is a 1020 and about 130 on a 150 shot of Nitrous. On motor, it runs, the best it did about 1140. I'm not afraid to drive this car. I mean, I'll drive it, 40, 50 mile stretch. That's about it. It's got 411 gears in it. Pretty much 60 miles an hour is around 3,500 RPM with the tire size that I have. But I'm not really scared to drive it. This engine, it's a low buck engine, to be honest with you. There's no expensive parts in it, and it's been a champ. And to be honest with you, I don't think I have more than 12 grand in this whole car at this point. To me, it's the best deal ever. I mean, I truly do love this Mustang. I've really enjoyed it. It runs hard, runs fast, and it's been dependable for the most part. But I'm kind of proud that it's not a ton of money into this car.